North Carolina is having a moment, and most people are looking in exactly the wrong places. While everyone's fighting over $800,000 bungalows in Asheville, or getting priced out of Charlotte's latest hot neighborhood, something else is happening in the parts of the state nobody's talking about yet. Small cities with actual downtowns, waterfront access that doesn't cost seven figures, and the kind of community culture that died in most of America around 2005 are quietly becoming destinations for people who figured out the cheat code. Here's what nobody tells you. North Carolina has 8 cities where the cost of living makes sense, the quality of life is legitimately high, and you can still get in before the real estate algorithms catch on. We're not talking about retirement communities or college towns pretending to be real places. We're talking about functioning small cities with jobs, culture, nature access, and the rarest commodity in modern America, availability. Zillow data shows these cities averaging 60 to 180 days on market, while the state's trendy spots see bidding wars in 48 hours. Median home prices ranging from $185,000 to $380,000 in markets where you actually get space, character, and a downtown you can walk. Some of these places have waterfront, some have mountain views, one has both, plus wild horses, and somehow still flies under the radar. We're counting down 8 North Carolina cities that people are quietly falling in love with. Not because influencers told them to, but because the math actually works and the lifestyle delivers. From coastal towns that feel like the 1980s in the best way possible to mountain communities that are everything Asheville used to be, these are the places smart money is noticing before the crowd arrives. So hit subscribe if you're tired of being told the only options are unaffordable or unlivable. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Bonus points if you've already discovered one of these places. And let's take a road trip through the North Carolina nobody's selling you, starting at number 8. We're starting in Wilmington, and before you say everyone already knows about Wilmington, hear this out. Yes, it's the largest city on our list at around 125,000 people. Yes, it shows up on plenty of best coastal cities rankings. But here's what's actually happening that the listicles miss. Wilmington is becoming the proving ground for people who thought affordable coastal living in a functional city died with the 1990s. The Cape Fear River meets the Atlantic just south of here, giving Wilmington something most beach towns don't have. Actual economic infrastructure beyond tourism. The film industry has been here since 1984, when Dino De Laurentiis built the largest movie studio east of Hollywood right here in town. EUE Screen Gems Studios has produced over 400 films and TV shows. Everything from Dawson's Creek to Iron Man 3 to half the Hallmark movies your relatives watch at Christmas. The port means maritime jobs that aren't seasonal. This isn't a beach town pretending to have an economy. It's a functioning city that happens to have beach access. According to the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, the metro added 3,200 jobs in the last year, with median household income hitting $63,000. That's not Charlotte money, but it funds a life most coastal cities can't offer at any price. Here's the Wilmington advantage. You get beach access, a walkable downtown with actual restaurants and bars that stay open past Labor Day, and a housing market that hasn't completely lost its mind yet. Zillow data from December 2025 shows median home prices at $378,000. That's what a one-bedroom condo costs in Charleston or a parking space sells for in Boston. Except here, you get an actual house with a yard 3 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. Homes are sitting an average of 68 days on market, which means you have negotiating room in a region where bidding wars are supposed to be mandatory. The downtown Riverwalk gives you that postcard waterfront experience without the Myrtle Beach chaos. Wrightsville Beach is 15 minutes east when you need actual ocean. Carolina Beach offers the slightly grittier, more authentic alternative. And unlike most beach towns where downtown means 3 blocks of tourist traps, Wilmington's historic district spans 230 blocks of pre-Civil War architecture that people actually live and work in. The trade-off is hurricane season, and it's real. Florence in 2018 dumped 30 inches of rain and caused $1.2 billion in damage locally. Flood insurance isn't optional, it's foundational math in your housing budget. Summer humidity makes you understand why air conditioning was invented, and the tourism economy means summer traffic that turns a 10-minute drive into a 40-minute exercise in patience. But here's what people are figuring out. Wilmington offers something the Outer Banks and the smaller beach towns can't. You can build a career here, not just a vacation. The University of North Carolina, Wilmington employs 3,000 people and keeps the city younger and weirder than pure retirement destinations. New Hanover Regional Medical Center is the largest employer at 5,800 jobs, which means healthcare careers without relocating to a metroplex. One realtor told us off the record, 5 years ago, our buyers were retirees and second home investors. Now it's remote workers in their 30s who want the coast without giving up civilization. They're buying the 1950s beach cottages their parents would have demolished, renovating them, and living 3 blocks from the ocean on a mortgage that's less than rent in Brooklyn. That shift shows in the data. The new Hanover County tax assessor reported new residential construction permits up 18% year over year, with the average new home size dropping from 2,400 to 2,100 square feet. People are prioritizing location over space, which is exactly what happens when a market transitions from retiree haven to lifestyle destination. Picture this, Saturday morning at the Riverfront Farmers Market. You smell coffee from Port City, Java, mixing with salt air off the Cape Fear. Live music drifts from the amphitheater while sailboats motor past heading for the inlet. Vendors sell local shrimp still cold from the boat, and your biggest decision is beach walk now or after brunch. Your mortgage? $2,100 for a renovated cottage 4 blocks from Wrightsville Beach. Your college roommate just signed a lease in Queens for $2,800 to share a 2-bedroom with a stranger and a window that faces a brick wall. You chose correctly, and if Wilmington feels like the easy answer, the safe choice for coastal North Carolina, just wait, because from here, we're heading to places most people have never heard of. From Wilmington, we're heading north to New Bern, and this is where the quietly part of our title starts making sense. Population 31,000, sits at the confluence of the Neuse and Trent rivers and has a downtown so pristinely preserved it looks like a film set. Except it's real, it's functional, and it's priced like nobody's figured out what they have yet. New Bern was North Carolina's colonial capital and the birthplace of Pepsi, which are the 2 facts most people know before they stop paying attention. Fun fact, in 1893, a pharmacist named Caleb Bradham invented Pepsi Cola right here in his drugstore as a digestive aid called Brad's Drink, the town that created America's second favorite cola. A brand now worth $20 billion, sells historic waterfront homes for less than what a fully loaded pickup truck costs. That's not irony, that's opportunity. Here's what actually matters now. This is a deep-water port city with 300 years of commercial history that never fully died, which means the bones of a real economy still exists underneath the retiree-focused marketing. The Swiss heritage gives the architecture a European flavor you don't expect in coastal North Carolina, and the waterfront access is legitimately spectacular for a median home price that Zillow pegs at $285,000 as of late 2025. That number deserves context. You're getting river views, historic homes with actual character, and a downtown where you can walk to restaurants, shops, and the farmers market without getting in a car. Compare that to Beaufort at $425,000 or Wilmington's $378,000, and New Bern starts looking like the market inefficiency it actually is. Homes are averaging 72 days on market according to Redfin, which in this region means sellers are negotiating, not dictating terms. The Neuse River is 6 miles wide where it meets the Trent, giving New Bern a waterfront scale that tiny river towns can't match. Tryon Palace, the reconstructed colonial governor's mansion, anchors a historic district spanning 150 blocks. The downtown has been undergoing a slow burn renaissance since 2010, with breweries, galleries, and independent shops filling storefronts that sat empty for decades. It's gentrification, but at a pace that hasn't priced out the people who kept the town alive during the lean years. The economy runs on healthcare, tourism, and retirees, which is simultaneously the opportunity and the limitation. Carolina East Medical Center employs around 2,400 people and serves as the regional healthcare hub. The Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point is 20 minutes south, pumping military spending and stable employment into the broader economy. But if you're looking for tech jobs, creative industry work, or anything outside healthcare and hospitality, you're either working remotely or you're commuting. Here's the New Bern advantage that nobody talks about. You're 2 hours from Raleigh, 90 minutes from Wilmington, and 45 minutes from the coast. It's not isolated, it's positioned. You can live on the water in a town with actual charm and still access bigger cities when you need them. The cost of living index sits at 94.7, below the national average, which means your dollar stretches in ways that coastal markets have forgotten. According According to the New Bern Area Chamber of Commerce, population growth has been steady at around 1.2% annually, which is the Goldilocks rate, enough to support new businesses, not enough to destroy the character. The median age is 47, which skews older, but has been dropping as remote workers discover the area. One brewery owner told us off the record, "We opened expecting retirees buying rounds for their golf buddies. Instead, we're getting millennials with kids who figured out they could sell their Charlotte townhouse, buy a historic home here with river views, and still bank $150,000. They're using that money to start businesses, travel, or just sleep better at night not being house poor." The trade-offs are real and need to be named. Hurricane Florence devastated New Bern in 2018, with storm surge flooding entire neighborhoods. The Trent and News both overflowed, leaving downtown under several feet of water. Flood insurance is expensive and mandatory if you're anywhere near the rivers. The job market is narrow. If healthcare or tourism aren't your field, you're relying on remote work or self-employment. And while the downtown is charming, it's small. You'll know every restaurant, every shop, every face within 6 months. But here's what people are quietly figuring out. New Bern offers waterfront living that most Americans have been priced out of, in a town that feels like it remembers what community used to mean. The Swiss Bear Downtown Sculpture Trail gives you public art. The farmers market runs year-round, and unlike purely seasonal beach towns, New Bern functions in January just as well as it does in July. Picture this: early morning on the Trent River waterfront. Mist lifts off the water in layers while great blue herons stalk the shallows hunting breakfast. The smell of coffee drifts from Beartown grounds, mixing with salt marsh and river current. Sailboats bob at anchor, and the historic district glows in golden light like a postcard from 1790. Your riverfront home with the wraparound porch costs $320,000. That's what a down payment requires in Savannah for something half as nice. You made the smarter choice, and the heron fishing 20 feet from your dock agrees. And if you thought New Bern felt like a step back in time, buckle up, because from the coastal plain, we're heading into the mountains. We're leaving sea level behind and climbing into the Blue Ridge Mountains to Boone, elevation 3,333 feet, where the air is thinner and the cost of living hasn't completely followed Asheville off a cliff yet. Population around 19,000, home to Appalachian State University, and sitting in the kind of mountain landscape that makes people quit their jobs and become hiking guides. Boone exists because of the university, which employs about 3,500 people and keeps 20,000 students cycling through town. That creates the culture and economy most mountain towns this size can't sustain. Actual restaurants, live music venues, an arts scene, and an employment base beyond tourism and retiree services. It also creates the housing tension because when you mix college town demand with limited mountain geography, prices get complicated fast. Zillow data from late 2025 shows Boone's median home price at $385,000, which sounds insane for a town of 19,000 until you realize Asheville is pushing $575,000 and places like Blowing Rock hit $650,000. You're paying for elevation, four-season climate, and access to outdoor recreation that would cost twice as much in Colorado. Homes average 83 days on market, slightly higher than the coastal cities, which tells you the market here moves differently. Buyers are choosier, sellers wait for the right match. The Blue Ridge Parkway runs right past town, giving you the most scenic commute in America if your job happens to be in the direction the parkway goes. Grandfather Mountain, one of the most photographed peaks on the East Coast, is 15 minutes north. The New River, one of the oldest rivers in the world geologically, runs through the valley below, offering kayaking and fishing. And ski season is real. Sugar Mountain, Beach Mountain, and Apps Mountain all sit within 20 minutes, making Boone the only place on our list where you can actually use the word ski without being laughed at. Here's what makes Boone different from typical college towns. The outdoor recreation culture runs deep enough that it transcends the student population. The Mountains to Sea Trail passes through. The Appalachian Trail is a short drive east. Rock climbing, mountain biking, fly fishing, and trail running aren't hobbies here, they're the operating system. According to the Boone Chamber, outdoor recreation and tourism generate over $300 million annually in economic impact, which means the infrastructure to support that lifestyle Gear shops, guide services, trail maintenance actually exists. The job market outside the university and tourism is limited but not non-existent. Samaritan's Purse, the international relief organization, is headquartered just outside town and employs around 800 people. Appalachian Regional Healthcare System serves as the medical hub for the high country. But if you're not in education, healthcare, hospitality, or nonprofits, you're either launching your own business or working remotely. The cost of living index sits at 104.2, slightly above national average, driven entirely by housing costs. The trade-offs hit differently at elevation. Winter is real. The town averages 33 inches of snow annually, and ice storms shut down the mountain roads regularly. If you're not comfortable driving in winter conditions, you're staying home or you're terrified. The university dominates the town's rhythm, which means football Saturdays are chaos. Summer is quieter, and the entire economy pulses with the academic calendar. And while the mountain views are stunning, the geography limits growth. There's only so much buildable land, which keeps housing prices elevated. One local realtor summed it up perfectly. People move here because they're done with the city. They stay because they realize the mountains give them something money can't buy anywhere else. Actual seasons, real community, and a reason to go outside every single day. The downtown King Street corridor has been revitalized over the past decade, with breweries like Appalachian Mountain Brewery and Lost Province leading the craft beer scene. The Watauga County Farmers Market runs May through October, offering local produce, crafts, and the kind of small-town socializing that feels increasingly rare. And unlike Asheville, which has become a curated experience designed for tourists, Boone still feels like a place where actual people live actual lives. Picture this: October morning in Boone, leaves turning gold and crimson across the ridges, cool mountain air at 45 degrees, and the smell of wood smoke from chimneys firing up for the season. You lace up your hiking boots, drive 10 minutes to a trailhead most people will never find, and realize your mortgage is half what your friends pay to stare at a brick wall in Denver. That's the Boone equation. Mountain life without mountain prices, at least for now. And if Boone felt like a big step away from conventional life, just wait, because from college town mountain we're heading to a Piedmont city that's reinventing itself in real time. We're dropping back down into the Piedmont to Salisbury, population 35,000, sitting just off Interstate 85 between Charlotte and Greensboro. This is Railroad Town America, trying to figure out what happens after the railroads stop mattering, and the answer emerging is more interesting than anyone expected. Salisbury was built on textiles and transportation, industries that collapsed so thoroughly that by 2010, downtown looked like a museum of economic failure. Vacant storefronts, crumbling Victorians, and the kind of slow-motion abandonment that makes people drive faster through town instead of stopping. Then something shifted. Arts organizations moved into cheap spaces. Young families priced out of Charlotte discovered historic homes at prices that seemed like data errors. And the city made an actual decision to invest in preservation instead of demolition. Here's the current state. Zillow shows median home prices at $215,000 as of late 2025. That's less than a new Ford F-150 King Ranch costs. Except instead of a truck payment, you get a 2,500 square foot Victorian with original hardwoods, 10-foot ceilings, stained glass windows, and a turret room your kids will fight over. You're 45 minutes from Charlotte, where the median hits $425,000 for vinyl-sided suburbia with an HOA that regulates your mailbox color. The math isn't close. Homes sit an average of 58 days on market, faster than the mountain towns, suggesting demand is real and building. You're getting architecture that would cost $600,000 to replicate in neighborhoods that are actively gentrifying but haven't fully flipped yet. The downtown has been designated a National Historic District, protecting over 20 blocks of late 19th and early 20th century commercial buildings. That designation brings federal preservation grants, which have funded facade restorations, streetscape improvements, and the kind of public investment that makes private investment follow. New Sarum Brewing, Morgan Ridge Railwalk Brewery, and several independent restaurants have opened since 2018, filling spaces that sat empty for decades. It's not Brooklyn, it's not even Asheville, but it's functional, growing, and priced for actual humans. The economy is transitioning, which is both the opportunity and the risk. Food Lion corporate headquarters employs around 4,500 people, providing white-collar jobs in a region that lost most of its manufacturing base. Novant Health Rowan Medical Center serves as the healthcare anchor with roughly 2,000 employees, but the textile mills are gone, the railroad shops have been converted to event spaces, and if you need need a job that isn't healthcare, retail, or food service, you're either working remotely or commuting to Charlotte. According to the Rowan County Economic Development Commission, population has been stable at around 140,000 county-wide, with a slight uptick in the past 3 years as Charlotte sprawl reaches this far north. The median household income sits at $51,000, below state average, which creates the affordability but also signals the economic challenges. This isn't a wealthy town, it's a working class city trying to climb into the middle class by leveraging its historic assets. Here's the Salisbury pitch that actually resonates. You can buy a legitimate Victorian showpiece for what a 2-bedroom condo costs in Charlotte. The commute is real, but doable if you're hybrid remote, and you're watching a downtown come back to life in real time, which feels like being early to something instead of late. The trade-offs need clear eyes. Crime rates are higher than the North Carolina average. The violent crime rate sits at 5.8 per 1,000 residents compared to the state average of 3.8 according to FBI data. Property crime follows the same pattern. Poverty rates hit 18.7% according to the most recent census data, well above the state's 13.1%. This is a city with real challenges, not a sanitized version of small-town life. But here's what people moving here understand. Gentrification is happening, and you can either be part of the wave or watch it from the outside. One gallery owner told us off the record, 5 years ago, you could barely give away a downtown storefront. Now we're getting artists from Charlotte and Raleigh who realize they can buy a building here for what annual rent costs there. They're opening studios, galleries, and coffee shops. It's early enough that they're not competing, they're collaborating. The Bell Tower Green Park opened in 2022, transforming 6 acres of downtown into green space with a pavilion, walking trails, and event lawn. The Salisbury Sculpture Show runs annually, bringing public art to the streets. And the Piedmont Players Theater, founded in 1961, offers community theater that's legitimately good. Fun fact, Salisbury is home to Cheerwine, the cherry-flavored soft drink invented here in 1917 that's achieved cult status across the South. The town that created a beverage empire worth tens of millions now sells the original founders' Victorian mansions for less than what a year of college tuition costs. You can live in the house that soft drink money built for soft drink money prices. Picture this, Sunday morning in downtown Salisbury, you walk to the Bell Tower Green Farmers Market past Victorians in various states of restoration, some pristine, some mid-renovation, all stunning. Live bluegrass drifts from the park pavilion while vendors sell local produce and artisan goods. You tour a 1890s Queen Anne with turret, wraparound porch, and original stained glass. The asking price? $189,000. Your Charlotte friends just lost a bidding war on a 1,200 square foot ranch for $380,000 in a neighborhood where the biggest tree is 8 years old. You're investing in a town with a past and a future. They're investing in suburbia with granite countertops. And if Salisbury felt like a compromise between affordability and urban access, from here we're heading back to the coast. But not the coast you know. We're back at sea level in Beaufort. That's Beaufort, not Bayou-fort like the South Carolina version. And this might be the most authentically coastal town left on the eastern seaboard that hasn't been Disneyfied into oblivion. Population 4,500, sitting on the Newport River with the Atlantic just beyond, and operating on a frequency that most of America forgot existed. Beaufort is old. Founded in 1709, third oldest town in North Carolina, and it wears that history in ways that feel organic instead of performed. The downtown waterfront runs along Front Street, where wooden docks jut into the harbor, and commercial fishing boats still outnumber pleasure craft. The North Carolina Maritime Museum anchors the cultural scene, documenting Blackbeard's shipwreck and 300 years of coastal history. And somehow, impossibly, there are 0 chain restaurants on the main drag. Not one. Here's where the affordability math gets complicated. Zillow data from late 2025 shows median home prices at $425,000, significantly higher than Salisbury or New Bern, approaching Wilmington territory. But here's what you're getting. Actual waterfront access in a town where maritime culture isn't a theme park attraction, it's the operating system. Homes average 94 days on market, the longest we've seen yet, which suggests buyers here aren't desperate, they're deliberate. This is a place you choose, not settle for. The downtown historic district contains over 100 restored homes dating from 1767 to 1943 with architectural styles spanning Georgian, Federal, and Victorian. The old barren Burying Ground Cemetery dates to 1724 and contains graves of Revolutionary War soldiers, sea captains, and the famous little girl buried in a barrel of rum, which is exactly the kind of authentic weirdness you can't manufacture. Walking tours run year-round because the history is deep enough to sustain actual tourism without destroying the town's character. The catch is obvious. This is a tiny town with a narrow economic base. The Maritime Museum employs about 40 people. Carteret Healthcare provides healthcare jobs. But mostly, Beaufort runs on tourism, retirees, and people who figured out how to work remotely before remote work was cool. The median household income sits around $58,000 according to census data, respectable for a town this small, but limiting if you're trying to break into the market on local wages alone. Here's the Beaufort advantage nobody talks about. You're 15 minutes from the Rachel Carson Reserve, where wild horses roam the barrier islands. Cape Lookout National Seashore is a 45-minute ferry ride, offering 56 miles of undeveloped beach, and the sailing culture is real. Beaufort hosts the East Coast Laser National Championships, and the harbor stays active year-round with everything from dinghies to blue water cruisers. According to the Carteret County Tax Assessor, property values have increased 23% over the past 3 years, but sales volume has remained steady, suggesting the market is appreciating without speculative frenzy. The town enacted strict historic preservation ordinances in the 1970s, preventing the kind of tear-down and rebuild cycle that destroyed Charleston's affordable neighborhoods. That preservation protects character, but limits supply, which keeps prices elevated. One local realtor explained it this way: Beaufort doesn't have buyers looking for bargains. It has buyers looking for authenticity. They'll pay more to live in a real fishing village than they will to live in a condo development pretending to be one. The trade-offs are lifestyle defining. Hurricane season is existential. Florence, Matthew, and Irene all caused significant damage in the past decade. Flood insurance is mandatory and expensive. The town essentially shuts down in winter, with restaurants running limited hours and tourist-dependent businesses hibernating until spring. And if you need anything beyond basic services, you're driving to Morehead City, Jacksonville, or New Bern. But here's what people falling for Beaufort understand: this is coastal living that still resembles the 1980s in the best possible way. The 4th of July parade still feels small town genuine. The Wooden Boat Show in May brings traditional sailing craft from across the East Coast, and you can walk to the docks, buy fresh caught fish directly from commercial fishermen, and know the names of the boats that caught your dinner. The Beaufort Historic Site operates 10 restored buildings offering living history programs. Front Street Books has been selling new and used books since 1991, surviving Amazon through curation and community. And Clausen's 1905 restaurant occupies a former grocery store, serving she-crab soup and hush puppies in a building that predates modern refrigeration. Picture this: summer evening on the Beaufort waterfront, sun setting over Taylor's Creek, sailboats anchored in the harbor, and the smell of salt marsh mixing with frying seafood from the dockside restaurants. Wild horses are visible on the barrier island across the channel, and your biggest stress is whether to have drinks on your porch or walk downtown. Your mortgage costs less than renting in Miami, and the Atlantic Ocean is your backyard. That's Beaufort, the coastal secret hiding in plain sight. And if Beaufort felt like maximum coastal commitment, from here we're heading inland to a place most people have never heard of: wine country in North Carolina, and it's real. We're heading west into the Yadkin Valley to Elkin, population 4,000, sitting at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains in a region that quietly became North Carolina's wine country while everyone was looking at Napa. And before you dismiss this as some agricultural backwater with delusions of grandeur, understand that the Yadkin Valley has over 40 wineries, more than 400 acres under vine, and a terroir that's producing wines that win actual awards. Elkin is tiny, rural, and punches so far above its weight class it feels like a statistical error. The downtown spans maybe 4 blocks along Main Street, anchored by the 1941 Reeves Theater, which still shows movies and hosts live performances. The Yadkin River flows right through town, offering kayaking, tubing, and fly fishing. And somehow this town of 4,000 supports an emerging arts scene, farm-to-table restaurants, and enough craft breweries and wineries within 20 minutes to sustain an actual beverage tourism economy. Here's the financial reality: Zillow data from late 2025 shows median home prices at $185,000, the lowest on our entire list. That's less than a new Tesla Model 3, except instead of a car that depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot, you get a house with mountain views, river access, and wine country on your doorstep. You could pay cash for a home here with what a down payment requires in Boone or Asheville. Homes sit an average of 76 days on market, suggesting the pace here is deliberate, not desperate. This isn't a market people are fleeing to, it's a market people are discovering slowly. The downtown has been undergoing a quiet renaissance since around 2015, when the city invested in facade improvements, streetscape upgrades, and infrastructure that signaled commitment instead of abandonment. The Reeves Theater reopened after restoration, becoming a cultural anchor. Angry Troll Brewing opened in a former hardware store, drawing beer tourists from across the region, and the Mountain Park Inn, a restored historic hotel, now offers boutique accommodations that wouldn't feel out of place in wine country California. Fun fact, the Yadkin Valley was designated an American viticultural area in 2003, putting it in the same official category as Napa, Sonoma, and Willamette Valley. Wines from here have won medals at international competitions, with Cabernet Franc and Viognier thriving in the climate and soil. You're not moving to pretend wine country, you're moving to the real thing, where tasting room fees are $8 instead of $45, and winemakers will actually talk to you because they're not surrounded by bachelorette parties from San Francisco. The economy is agriculture, small manufacturing, and increasingly creative class transplants who figured out they could live anywhere. The median household income sits around $42,000 according to census data, which is low by any standard but creates the affordability that makes Elkin accessible. Hugh Chatham Memorial Hospital employs several hundred people and serves as the healthcare hub for northern Surrey County, but the major employers are spread across small manufacturers, agriculture operations, and service businesses. This isn't a company town, it's an ecosystem. Here's the Elkin advantage that nobody talks about. You're 30 minutes from Mount Airy, Mayberry, 45 minutes from Winston-Salem, and 90 minutes from Charlotte. It's isolated but not stranded. The Blue Ridge Parkway is 20 minutes west, offering the same mountain access that people pay 6 figures more for in Boone. And the Yadkin Valley Wine Region designation means you're surrounded by tasting rooms, vineyard tours, and a food culture that takes itself seriously. According to the Surrey County Economic Development Partnership, the region added 14 new businesses in the past year, with a notable increase in remote workers registering home-based businesses. The population has been stable around 4,000 for the past decade, but the demographics are shifting, median age dropping from 52 to 47 as younger buyers discover the area. One vineyard owner told us off the record, "We're seeing wine tourists from Charlotte who come up for a weekend, hit 4 or 5 tasting rooms, stay at the inn, and start asking their realtor friends about properties before they even drive home." The pandemic taught people they don't have to live where they work. Elkin offers something you can't manufacture in the city: space, quiet, actual community, and wine that costs $18. A bottle instead of $60. The trade-offs are rural and real. This is small-town living at scale. Limited restaurant options, no major grocery chains, and if you need specialty services or shopping, you're driving to Winston-Salem. The job market is narrow. If you're not in healthcare, agriculture, or manufacturing, you're working remotely or commuting. And while the wine region is growing, it's not Napa. You're still in rural North Carolina, with rural North Carolina infrastructure and pace. But here's what people quietly falling for Elkin understand. This is mountain living at coastal plains prices. The Carter Falls Trail offers waterfalls and swimming holes within town limits. Stone Mountain State Park, with 25 miles of hiking trails and granite dome climbing, sits 15 minutes away, and you can own a historic home with mountain views for what a studio apartment costs in Raleigh. The Elkin Valley Trails Association maintains over 10 miles of walking and biking paths connecting parks, downtown, and the Yadkin River. The farmers market runs May through October, offering local produce, crafts, and the kind of socializing that disappeared in most of America. And the downtown Christmas parade still draws the entire town, which sounds corny until you realize how rare that kind of community participation has become. Picture this: fall afternoon in Elkin, leaves turn gold and crimson across the mountain ridges, and the smell of wood smoke mixes with fermenting grapes in the cool October air. You bike the greenway to a downtown tasting room, sample a Cabernet Franc that just won silver at the San Francisco International international wine competition and chat with the winemaker about harvest yields and weather patterns like your old friends. Your mortgage, $980 a month for a renovated bungalow 3 blocks from downtown. Your San Francisco acquaintances pay more than that for parking. You're drinking better wine, spending less money, and you can actually see stars at night. That's Elkin, wine country nobody told you about at prices that still remember what affordable means. And if Elkin felt like a leap into rural commitment, from here we're heading deeper into the mountains to Asheville's affordable little sibling, the town that offers the vibe without the price tag. We're climbing back into serious elevation to Silva, population 2,600, sitting in Jackson County at the doorstep of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And here's what you need to understand immediately. This is what Asheville was in 2005 before the food magazines and lifestyle blogs turned it into a curated experience priced for trust fund bohemians. Silva has the mountains, the walkable downtown, the brewery scene, and the creative class influx. What it doesn't have yet is the Asheville price tag. Silva sits at 2,047 feet elevation in a valley surrounded by 6,000-foot peaks, with the Tuckasegee River running through downtown. The main street climbs a hill so steep that storefront entrances on one side are second-floor level on the other, creating a tiered downtown that feels European in scale and completely unique in execution. Western Carolina University sits just outside town in Cullowhee, bringing 12,000 students and all the culture and complication that entails. Here's the current math. Zillow data from late 2025 shows median home prices at $340,000, which sounds expensive until you remember Asheville is at $575,000 and Boone hit $385,000. You're getting Great Smoky Mountains access, a functioning downtown with actual character, and a housing market that's appreciating but hasn't detached from reality yet. Homes average 79 days on market, slightly slower than the Piedmont cities, reflecting the deliberate pace of buyers choosing mountain lifestyle over convenience. The downtown has been revitalized over the past 15 years through a combination of university spillover, retiree influx, and remote workers discovering the region. Innovation Brewing anchors the craft beer scene from a restored historic building. The Jackson County Green Energy Park offers trails, a farmer's market, and community events. And Main Street maintains a mix of local businesses, bookshops, galleries, restaurants, outdoor gear shops that feel organic instead of algorithmic. The economy runs on the university, healthcare, and tourism, which creates both opportunity and limitation. Western Carolina University employs around 2,000 people and generates roughly $400 million in annual economic impact according to the university's own data. Harris Regional Hospital serves as the medical hub for Jackson County with about 1,200 employees. But outside education and healthcare, you're working remotely, starting your own business, or commuting to Asheville. Here's the Silva advantage that makes people reconsider their entire life plan. You're 30 minutes from Cherokee and the entrance to Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most visited national park in America with over 13 million annual visitors. The Blue Ridge Parkway is 20 minutes north. Whitewater kayaking on the Nantahala and Tuckasegee rivers is world-class and local, and ski resorts like Cataloochee are within 45 minutes. This is outdoor recreation infrastructure that would cost twice as much in Colorado or Vermont. According to the Jackson County Economic Development Office, population growth has averaged 1.8% annually over the past 5 years, driven primarily by retirees and remote workers. The median household income sits at $48,000, below state average, but the cost of living index at 98.2 remains just below national average despite the mountain location. That combination creates access for people willing to trade income for lifestyle. One local business owner summed it up perfectly. Silva gets the people who wanted Asheville but couldn't stomach the prices or the crowds. We get the hikers, the writers, the artists, the people who moved to the mountains because they actually wanted to be in the mountains, not because it was trendy. The trade-offs are mountain living at full intensity. Winter weather closes roads regularly. The town averages 17 inches of snow annually, but ice storms create more problems than accumulation. The university dominates the town's rhythm, creating housing competition and a seasonal economy that pulses with the academic calendar. And while the downtown is charming, it's small. You'll exhaust the restaurant options in a month and recognize every face at the farmer's market. Hurricane impacts are real despite the elevation. Helene in 2020 2024 caused catastrophic flooding throughout western North Carolina, with the Tuckasegee River overflowing and devastating parts of Sylva. Climate patterns are shifting, and 100-year floods are arriving more frequently. Flood insurance and disaster preparedness aren't optional considerations, they're foundational to mountain living now. But here's what people choosing Sylva understand. This is the last chance to get the Asheville experience before full gentrification. The Mountains Artisans Guild operates a gallery downtown showcasing regional craftspeople. The Balsam Mountain Inn, a restored 1908 hotel, offers historic accommodations with mountain views. And the Peaks and Pints 5K run combines trail running with brewery stops, which perfectly captures the Sylva culture. Outdoor recreation with a creative, slightly irreverent edge. The Jackson County Farmers Market runs year-round, offering local produce, crafts, and live music. The Dillsboro River Company provides kayak and tube rentals right in town. And the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad offers scenic train rides through the Nantahala Gorge, connecting Sylva to regional tourism without overwhelming the town's character. Picture this: October morning in Sylva, fog settling in the valley, mountains ablaze with fall color, and the smell of wood smoke from chimneys mixing with coffee from City Lights bookstore. You lace up your boots, drive 20 minutes to a trailhead in the Smokies, and spend the day hiking terrain that most people pay resort prices to access. Your mortgage costs half what Asheville demands, and you got the mountains without the curated lifestyle tax. That's Sylva, Asheville's little sibling with all the advantages and none of the pretension. And if Sylva felt like a serious commitment to mountain living, our final destination takes it even further, back to the coast, to a town so quiet it barely registers on the map, a place that time didn't just forget, it chose to leave alone. We're ending where America began, at least nominally. Washington, North Carolina. The original Washington, the first town in the United States named after George Washington, chartered in 1776 while the man was still fighting the war that would make him famous. Population 9,000, sitting on the Pamlico River, where it widens into a mile-wide estuary before spilling into Pamlico Sound and eventually the Atlantic. And here's the ironic twist that brings us full circle. This might be the quietest, most overlooked waterfront town left on the East Coast. Fun fact, Washington was named after George Washington in 1776, when he was 44 years old and losing more battles than he was winning against the British. The town bet on him before Yorktown, before the Constitution, before anyone knew if the revolution would even succeed. The Founding Fathers' favorite city now sells waterfront colonial and Victorian homes for what a single year of Georgetown University tuition costs. Washington would probably find that either hilarious or devastating, possibly both. Washington has no traffic lights on Main Street, not because it's charmingly quaint, but because traffic is so light they genuinely aren't needed. The downtown waterfront runs along Water Street, where historic buildings house restaurants, shops, and galleries that operate on a schedule that would baffle most modern businesses. The river dominates everything. Commercial fishing boats, pleasure craft, and sailboats share the harbor in a mix that feels like coastal North Carolina before development ate everything. Here's the math that makes people question the entire real estate market. Zillow data from late 2025 shows median home prices at $195,000. That's less than a loaded Honda Pilot, except instead of a 3-row SUV that loses value the second you drive it home, you get waterfront access, historic architecture, and a downtown you can walk. Nobody's fighting over this. Homes sit an average of 88 days on market, the slowest pace we've seen, which tells you Washington isn't on anyone's hot list. It's still flying under the radar, which is either the opportunity or the warning sign depending on what you're looking for. The Pamlico River is a mile wide here, giving Washington a waterfront scale that tiny river towns can't match. The Washington waterfront docks provide free public access with floating docks, boat slips, and a waterfront park. The North Carolina Estuarium offers environmental education on the Tar-Pamlico River Basin, and somehow, incredibly, you can still find waterfront homes in the $250,000 to $350,000 range that would cost $1.2 million in Charleston or Savannah. The economy is narrow and getting narrower. Beaufort County Hospital employs around 1,400 people, serving as the medical hub for the region. PCS Phosphate operates a major facility nearby, providing industrial jobs. But the downtown has been struggling for decades. Vacant storefronts outnumber occupied ones on several blocks, and the businesses that remain operate on limited hours and even more limited optimism. According to the Beaufort County Economic Development Office, population has declined slightly over the past decade. decade, dropping from around $9,700 to $9,000. The median household income sits at $43,000, well below state average, and the poverty rate hits 23.4% according to census data. This is not a wealthy town, it's a working class community that lost its economic base and hasn't found a replacement yet. Here's the Washington reality that needs honest eyes. Hurricane Florence in 2018 devastated the area, with the Pamlico River flooding downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. The town sits at sea level in a hurricane zone with warming oceans and rising seas, which means flood insurance is expensive and mandatory. Climate change isn't a future threat here, it's present-day economics affecting property values and insurance costs. But here's what a small but growing group of people are quietly figuring out. Washington offers something that's almost extinct in America: waterfront living at prices that actual middle-class humans can afford. The town has been investing in waterfront improvements, trail systems, and downtown beautification despite the economic challenges. The Washington Harbor District Alliance has been coordinating private and public investment to revitalize the riverfront. One realtor told us off the record, "We're getting buyers from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York who want coastal living without coastal prices. They're selling $500,000 suburban houses up north, buying waterfront Victorians here for $280,000, and banking the difference for retirement or travel. They're willing to accept a smaller town, fewer amenities, and hurricane risk in exchange for waterfront property they could never afford anywhere else. And honestly, most of them are happier than they've been in decades." The art scene is small but genuine. The Turnage Theater, built in 1925, still hosts performances and films. The Arts of the Pamlico Gallery showcases regional artists, and the North Carolina Estuarium hosts educational programs on river ecology and conservation. These aren't world-class cultural institutions, but they're functioning, which is more than most towns this size can claim. The trade-offs are total and need to be stated clearly. This is a small town with small town limitations: limited restaurants, limited shopping, limited entertainment, and limited economic opportunity. If you're not working remotely or retired, job options are healthcare, phosphate plant work, or service industry positions. The median age is 42, but that's been rising as young people leave for opportunities elsewhere. The crime rate sits slightly above state average, though violent crime remains relatively rare. Property crime follows economic distress. When a town is struggling, theft and burglary rates tend to reflect that struggle. The schools are rated below state average on most metrics, which matters if you're moving with children. But here's the Washington pitch that's starting to resonate with a specific type of buyer. You can own waterfront property on a navigable river in a historic town with actual character for less than most people spend on a new pickup truck. The Washington Waterfront Underground Walking Tour explores the town's role in the Underground Railroad. The Pamlico River runs right through downtown, offering kayaking, fishing, and boating, and the pace of life here makes even slow seem hurried. Picture this: early morning on the Washington waterfront. Mist rises off the Pamlico River in sheets, while commercial fishing boats motor out toward the sound, their running lights still visible in the pre-dawn gray. The smell of saltwater mixes with coffee from Bill's Hot Dogs. Yes, they serve coffee. It's that kind of town. Your 1890s Victorian with the river view and wraparound porch costs $265,000, which is what a parking space sells for in Boston. You watch the sunrise paint the river gold, and you realize nobody's competing for this life. Nobody's bidding up the prices. And that quiet, that whisper soft pace where nothing happens fast and nobody's in a hurry, that's either everything you've been desperately searching for, or the sound of a town dying slowly while the river keeps flowing. That's Washington. The original, the overlooked, and the place that asks whether you want waterfront living badly enough to accept everything that comes with a town time mostly forgot. From Wilmington's functional beach city to Washington's waterfront time capsule, we've covered 8 North Carolina cities that people are quietly discovering before the algorithms catch on. Not because influencers told them to, not because some listicle declared them trendy, but because the math works, the quality of life delivers, and they're still priced for humans instead of investment portfolios. Here's the pattern. North Carolina still has real places at real prices, but that window is closing. Salisbury's $215,000 Victorians won't last at those prices. Elkin's wine country is being discovered. Silva is becoming what Asheville used to be. And even Washington's waterfront deals require accepting trade-offs most people won't consider. These aren't perfect places. They're real places with real limitations, real weather, real economic challenges, and real community cultures that might not match your expectations. But they offer something increasingly rare in America: the possibility of building a life that doesn't require 6 figures in income or generational wealth wealth to access. So if this resonated, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and which of these cities surprised you most. Share this with someone who's tired of being told the only options are unaffordable cities or dying rural towns. Because the truth is more interesting, more nuanced, and still accessible if you know where to look. The question isn't whether North Carolina has hidden gems. The question is whether you're willing to move before everyone else figures it out.